Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another daily Marvel Snap video. So today we decided to build a deck that I believe is one of the strongest decks in the game right now. And I run a very similar version to this with Sauron on my main account and climbed up to rank 150 with a 60% win rate on it. And this one has a lot of the same core ideals that the other one does. It just loses a small bit of oomph without having Sauron to be able to enable a last turn Ebony Maw and your beneficial cards like your Lizard, your Typhoid Mary, things like that. However, Shuri ramp decks are so incredibly strong. They can outpower most greedy decks. So with Silver Surfer deck, a lot of times a Shuri into a Red Skull and a Taskmaster is going to be enough to outpower the opponent in 2 lanes. Or if it's a Zabu deck and they're going with a Lockdown, a lot of times you can pull their cards over with Aero, you can clump their Spider-Men together, a lot of times capping out a location and giving yourself the win there in the process. You can also do the Shuri into skipping on turn 5 so that you can play the She-Hulk and Taskmaster both on turn 6 for a 40 power turn 6 play, which is just a phenomenal explosive play. So if you don't have a good play around potential for a Shang-Chi, sometimes it's going to benefit you to lose that tempo on turn 5 by skipping, and then that would allow you to reveal your cards last to make sure that there is no issue. The only potential counterplay to that would be if the opponent is also running an Aero, but otherwise it is a foolproof way to make sure that you get that power onto the board. And so the idea with this list is that it is very straightforward and it just pushes a lot of raw power onto the board. There's not really any fancy, crazy combos or really obscure play lines that require 3 or 4 cards to be able to pull off. This one, no matter what cards you pull into, you should have a good in-game strategy, and you should be able to identify what in-game strategy you're going with by around turn 3 or 4, after you identify what kind of cards your opponent's playing and how the location is set up. But overall, I'm so excited that Shuri was dropped so that she's more accessible to everybody else, and that She-Hulk and Titania both dropped down to Series 3. In this version, since we don't have Sauron, we did take out Ebony Maw to add in Titania. Titania is going to be one of those cards that I will typically only drop if I zero it out or on the last turn alongside Aero, alongside a Taskmaster, alongside a Red Skull, but I'm not going to drop it unless I am certain that we are going to be able to get the value from it. Otherwise, it's too much of a liability, and we just don't want that headache whenever we're trying to determine our play line. With the brief deck explanation out of the way, we are going to go ahead and jump over into a couple of games. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, first up we have Byrock. The first location is Martage, so if we end up pushing Shuri over there, then surely it will be a good thing. We can even do Shuri, a Red Skull, and then maybe Arnim Zola to destroy both. I don't know. We can push them across the board if we need to. We did both play Sunspot into the middle location, so I don't think we have to worry about a Killmonger here. We could do Zero and Titania this turn, just to make sure we get some cards into the far right lane in case it turns into Plunder Castle. We have been scarred with how many times we've seen Plunder Castle, and just getting value over there early can add an incredible amount of benefit. And so it does turn into Plunder Castle. However, that means that we probably need to skip here. So we do the double Shuri, then we'll play whatever we're going to play that's quadruple powered into Martage. We will hit both of those with our Arnim Zola to push them into mid and the far right. And that is going to be our play line. The thing I really like about Shuri decks is that they are very straightforward. You do have several options to try to avoid like Shang-Chi plays and then those counter plays, but just in general, they're very, very straightforward. So you can pretty much know what your play line is going to be. And I think that's where some of their real core strength lies, is that you don't have to try to big brain every single game, which is really hard to do for multiple games or for a really long session. And so we do get the double trigger of Shuri, which will quadruple power whatever card we play next. Unfortunately, Iceman hits our Lizard twice, so that's no longer going to be a great card for us to play. We could, however, do the Aero, and then that's going to pull whatever they play on the last turn into Plunder Castle. I don't know. It might be okay. We're going to do Aero, and that is a 28 power Aero that we're looking at. It would have been better if it had been something a little bit bigger, but hopefully we can still find a way to make use of it. Aero and it pulling those cards into Plunder Castle is what is going to scare me. However, we are going to reduce the power of their Lizard because Arnim Zola is going to trigger twice here, so that's going to push their Shuri and push their Aero. However, we're not going to play anything after this turn. If we were able to play something, or if we had a 0 cost card, we would get the double trigger for whatever card we played after Arnim Zola came down. And it does look like they end up retreating, and so we do get the 1 cube. Should have had a pretty easy play line. But the thing that I like about these decks is that between Arnim Zola and Taskmaster, it is really hard to know exactly where the opponent's power is going to end up. And so it's a lot harder to target your Shang-Chi efficiently, or even your Aero, or whatever counterplay you're using. And so we're going to go ahead and take that one. We will jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Ice Age. The first location is Mojo World, and that's not something that this deck really shines in, is flooding the locations. However, we do have several low-cost cards, so our Scorpion, our Sunspot, our zeroed-out Titania. So if it comes down to it, we can always use Arnim Zola to slot in that very last card into Mojo World. And I think we could have some decent success with it. We could also do Shuri, skip one 5, have a 1-cost She-Hulk. And so then maybe we do that along with an Aero. We do have several options to play. Now, Arnim Zola is not going to be a potential avenue for play anymore because the last location turns out to be Wakanda. So that means Plunder Castle is pretty much up for grabs unless we don't have any energy go to waste on turn 5, so that She-Hulk is a 6 cost. But that would be pretty difficult. We're going to go ahead and play Lizard over into Wakanda. We do have our Shuri to play next turn, and then we do get Taskmaster. So if they have a double Spider-Man lockdown here, because they're running Zabu, if they have a double Spider-Man lock here, that's really difficult for us. Otherwise, we can push 20 power into Mojo World, 20 power into Wakanda, and it's a decent power push. It's not perfect, but it's decent. So they do a Dracula, so that could potentially absorb an Infinite or something similar. So they skip here as well. Very interesting, very scary. We're going to go with the She-Hulk into Mojo World. We're going to go with the Taskmaster into Wakanda and see if the 20 power is enough to sneak these 4 cubes away. Unfortunately, we do have our big heavy hitters in our Aero and our Red Skull left in our deck, but I do like the play line of the double-powered She-Hulk, the double-powered Taskmaster, so we're pushing 40 power on this last turn, which is nothing too terrible. So they do play 2 cards. If they have a Shang-Chi that they played in Mojo World, then we're going to lose that one by 100. No, they play a 10-power She-Hulk to the left and the right. What gets absorbed is a Magneto. We lose the left by 6. We win Wakanda by 9. We actually still sneak away the win. Had they pulled into something bigger, so an Infinite, they could have outpowered us, but I think Infinite would have been the only thing that could have done it for them in that scenario, besides, of course, the Shang-Chi. We are going to take that win. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have the second 7, and we actually lost a game. We dropped a game to them. Between the last game and this one, they had a Professor X lockdown, so they were running a Thanos deck list. They had a Professor X lockdown that took us by surprise, and so maybe we can position ourselves in a way that we're not going to get taken off guard by that again. So I'm going to go ahead and play our Sunspot in left. We're going to play our Armor in right. We're not going to be necessarily setting up for a great Arnim Zola play. However, we can always play that into the Isle of Silence. We know that Professor X cannot be used there, and so that's a relatively bad lane for them. Strange Academy, it comes down in the far right, and it will move all cards after turn 5. So I'm going to go ahead and skip here. They use the Space Stone, so they can move either the Reality Stone or Space Stone out, but they are going to leave both into the Isle of Silence. They do ramp up here on turn 3 into turn 4 with the Time Stone. So having played a Thanos deck, I know a little bit better about how it's working than I used to. And so now they have 5 energy. They could be going for a Professor X lock. They can't do it here. So maybe they're going to try to push it into Strange Academy. I'm going to take a risk. We're going to take a gamble. We're going to play Lizard and then Titania. If they try Professor X lockdown, no, they don't. Oh, then our Titania is vulnerable here. They do use a Hobgoblin, which is one of the other things that got us last game. I'm going to use our Aero to pull whatever they play this turn into the Isle of Silence. I don't think we have a great play line. However, we are going to be able to do a 0 and a Red Skull on the last turn. Actually, no, we're just going to play Red Skull into the Isle of Silence. We know that they do have a Shang-Chi in their deck, and so we need to be on the lookout for that. Maybe on the last turn we do an Aero and a 0 to pull their cards over, but I do like having Red Skull in the Isle of Silence because it's essentially a free 0 for us. So they play over into Strange Academy. It can't be the Professor X, it's a Vision. All right, so they do go with the Vision. They'll be able to move that around the board wherever they need to. The Titania goes into the Isle of Silence, which is unfortunate because now whatever we play is not going to be able to bounce it back onto our side. But it's also a little bit unfortunate for them because if they play a Shang-Chi, that is going to send Titania on to our side of the board. And so I guess they could move their Vision over. That would push them to 14. And so knowing that potential play line, if I was them, I would play a card and then move the Vision over. And so we're going to go ahead and play 0 into the Isle of Silence. After, of course, playing our Taskmaster into the Tinkerer's Workshop to copy the 15 power from our Red Skull. So let's see if they go with the Shang-Chi play. Let's see if... I don't think they have a great out. And either way that it comes down, whether it's a win or a loss, they have to make a call. There is no set game plan or no set play line for them to know exactly what we're going to do. Because the end game, it might be transparent. It's similar to a Spectrum Destroyer. It might be very transparent what you want to do, but figuring out how to counter and which one you're going to do is where the trickiness comes in and where that finesse is going to come in handy. And so they do end up retreating. We will take our 1 cube. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Y2J. The first location is Plunder Castle. We do have 0, but we are going to hold it. We don't have any of our targets that we want to hit with 0. So a lot of times holding 0 until maybe turn 6 where you can use it alongside a Red Skull could be beneficial. But in this game, we do have our Shuri. So actually, we're going to go ahead and snap early. We're pretty confident in our potential play line. If we draw into an Arnim Zola, we can always use that on the double power Red Skull to push it over into Plunder Castle. Otherwise, we might be able to tech in an Aero or just have 2 lanes that have a massive 30 power in them, which is going to be beneficial as well. We're going to go ahead and skip on turn 3 again, and then we will be able to do turn 4 Shuri. If we want to, we could skip on turn 5, do the She-Hulk and Taskmaster playline, or we can go with the Red Skull into an Aero, the Red Skull into a Taskmaster. There's just a lot of avenues that we can choose depending on what the opponent is running. And so they are running maybe a Lockjaw rotation deck. They play Thor as the first card that they play. So it could be the big Janejaw deck that we've featured recently, potentially. Let's go ahead and play our Shuri. That doesn't change our playline or strategy at all. Sometimes Lockjaw rotation decks do run a Shang-Chi. Otherwise, we're not really worried about it. They can't really match our high roll potential. And so 2 30 power units on the board, I don't think they're going to be able to match that power, no matter what kind of lucky flips or lucky cards they get. So it is a Lockjaw rotation deck. So they have the Lockjaw, they rotate their Mjolnir already. So they pull into it right after they play their Thor, which is beautiful. Into, oh my gosh, a Jane Foster. What are these flips? That is the perfect, and then into a Vision. That is perfection. Just bravo. I couldn't even describe a better flip there. That was beautiful. That was a thing of beauty. We're going to go ahead and play the Red Skull. It's 30 power. It might not match up to their high roll. They can do 2 more rotations. And so a lot of times, if it's structured the same way that I had mine, then they have a lot of good value. So they're never going to flip into a dud, which is definitely scary. So they do move their Vision over into Plunder Castle. They play She-Hulk. Oh boy. She-Hulk, and then they play their Mjolnir. They cycle into a Chavez, and then they cycle one more time. Is it another Mjolnir? No, it's Magneto. Just beautiful. Oh man. What if we went with a Hail Mary? This might not work, but if they don't have anything else to kind of mess with us, the monster goes over into Plunder Castle. If they don't play anything there, which I think they probably will, if they don't play anything there, then we win the Plunder Castle lane. The extra 9 would let us win a Murder World. It's not a great shot, but it's the only shot we've got. Let's lock it in. Ooh, okay. They just play their Nightcrawler. There is no way that we won this high roll of game. Y2J played that and just had the most beautiful luck up until that last turn. I'm guessing they flipped into all of their big 6-cost cards and they didn't have anything else they could play into Plunder Castle. That is one beautiful monster. We will take those 4 cubes. That was for 4 cubes too. We will take those 4 cubes. Let's go ahead and jump over into the next one. All right, next up we have Trojan. And the first location is Miniaturized Lab, so it's going to lock down after turn 2. And we can push some additional power over there with our Arnim Zola. We don't want to do Titania just because that makes it too easy it's just too easy for them to counter it. Now, we're going to take a risk. We're going to hope that they don't destroy their Deadpool this turn. And if they don't destroy their Deadpool this turn, then he is going to be locked into the Avengers compound. We're going to avoid the Miniaturized Lab. Ooh, they don't destroy him this turn. Is that a retreat? That might be enough for a retreat. Getting your Deadpool stuck is one of your high roll potentials, and so it probably stings quite a bit. We're going to go ahead and skip here. On turn 4, we'll play our Shuri into Stark Tower. We can then do a Red Skull into the Avengers compound. We can follow that up on the last turn with a Taskmaster and a Titania to push a little over 60 power onto the board, which is going to be very, very hard to compete against. And so if we didn't want this to play all the way out, if we were okay with just ending it as is, then I would actually go ahead and snap here. This is one of those strategic positionings where we have all of the key cards we need. We have Shuri, we have Red Skull, we have Taskmaster or Arnim Zola, so that we have that flexibility. We even have Aero if it looks like we, on the last turn, just yank their cards out of Miniaturized Lab and then slam our Titania there. We have a whole lot of flexibility in what and how we can do what we want to do. And so I think that might even be our play line, is to do the double powered Red Skull on turn 6. That should give us initiative. On turn 6, we can always Aero pull their card over and sneak a Titania into Miniaturized Lab for the win. Let's go ahead and lock that in. Very straightforward play line. Nothing crazy, nothing spectacular here. Oh, they go with a wave. Nothing has been destroyed here, though, is going to be the key thing. And so death is not going to be free. Okay, they could do She-Hulk here, right? They could do She-Hulk and something else. Okay, so we're winning this lane by 11. We're winning this lane by 21. We're losing this one by 6. So if we get outpowered by a She-Hulk and a death, so 20-something power. So it's either pushing the additional 30 power into Stark Tower, or we go with Aero and hope that they don't have 2 very large cards. So if they have a She-Hulk and an Aero, then that's not going to be enough to break open our tiebreaker. We're going to do it. We're going to use Aero to yank their cards over in a Stark Tower and hope that they don't have the 2 massive cards. So they play 1 card into Miniaturized Lab, which does end up being Shang-Chi. Interesting. I respect you sticking it all the way out, Trojan. With that one, not the most ideal play line, not the most ideal end-game scenario, but we were able to position ourselves and find a way to win. With that one, we are going to go ahead and end the video. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you pulled Shuri from a Series 4 reserve, or you've purchased her in the token shop, she is one of my best performing cards. So definitely check this list out. It is incredibly strong. I hope that you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave it a like and a comment down below. And as always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.